Can he do it again? Mike Bibby. Bibby stops, pops, Bibby, the hero, again, on back-to-back nights.
Back low, stolen by Bibby. Ahead to Martin, to the rim. And the Sacramento Kings have won.
Cousins. Cole had a save. Look out, ball. Oh, if you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this late night edition episode of the Kings Court presented by SacKingsNation.com. I'm your host, Vince Miracle. Joining me today, very special guest. You guys have heard him on the show plenty of times, Mr. James Ham. James, how you doing?
Pretty good. What's going on, Vince?
Oh, it's 10 o'clock at night. Got to have an energy drink. But it's our very first late night edition, and we're live. So people go ahead and join us on the live chat, and we will be taking your phone calls later on in the show. But James, let's go ahead and start the show off right. I want to talk to you about the NBA draft. What was your feelings leading up to it? Did you expect the Kings to draft Willie Cauley-Stein, or were the Kings really just playing it so close to the chest that absolutely no one knew what they were going to do come their time on the clock?
Well, I think no one really knew what they were going to do when the time came. Lonnie Divac was very clear that not only did he hold out on the fans and the inner circle, but he held out on Vivek Ranadive and George Karl. No one knew who the pick was until it came up. I do know that Vlade liked Porzingis and Hezonja as well, and that if either of those players fell, then he would have had a decision to make. But Willie Cauley-Stein is a guy that I knew early on. I knew during the season that the Kings liked a ton. There are people within the organization that liked Willie Cauley-Stein better than they liked Towns or Okafor. They specifically believe that he fits perfectly next to DeMarcus Cousins and Rudy Gay. They believe that he is a hustle player who has incredible skill as a defender, and they also believe that the other guys are a little lazy and wouldn't really fit their team. Now, during the draft, when Mudiay fell to the Kings, I was shocked when they didn't take him, because Mudiay, I thought, was a higher ceiling player. But I understand, and I'm on board with Willie Cauley-Stein, because I do believe he fits a need, and he fits multiple needs. And I think he starts day one, and I think he's a very, very good young player who's further along in his game than almost any of the other players in this draft.
You brought it up. I mean, Emmanuel Mudiay was there, and like you said you agree with it. I agree with it too. And I had Rui Thomas from CowbellKingdom on like just prior to the draft, and we were making our guesses on who do you think the Kings would draft come that time. And I want to ask you this: if Mario Hezonja, however you pronounce his name, was still on the board come their time to pick, do you think that was the pick the Kings were going to choose?
Yes. I do believe that. I know that Divac had like three guys he was really looking at: Porzingis, Hezonja, however you want to say it, and Willie Cauley-Stein. Those are his three.
So there were rumblings as well. I mean, I liked Mario. I thought that's who the Kings were going to draft while I was at the draft party. I was at the draft party at Firestone, so like everyone's moods were changing. And I think I had you on the show when we did the review, and I said I wasn't really that high on Willie Cauley-Stein at 6, but yet the Kings drafted him at 6, and I just feel like that was the safe pick. There was so much potential of what they could have done with that pick, especially with the rumors of possibly like Willie Cauley-Stein dropping. Do you think they kind of missed out on the potential of moving back in the draft, probably acquiring more draft picks and still having Willie Cauley-Stein on the board?
I don't, because the next pick is the Denver Nuggets, and for as much animosity that is brewing between these two franchises, the Denver Nuggets have Michael Malone as their head coach, and he was going to be pulling for Willie Cauley-Stein as well. I mean, Willie Cauley-Stein is a very versatile defender. It's a guy that you don't have to wait 2 or 3 years for, where Emmanuel Mudiay, you have to wait for him. you have no idea what he is. I mean, he played, like 12 or 14 games in China, again, against very, very, very low competition. That's not exactly like comparable to college basketball or anything else. So it's really difficult to know what Mudiay is going to be. And then if you keep going back, I mean, Charlotte wouldn't give up the number 9, and they said it was up to 4 first-round draft picks plus more that was on the table from the Celtics. Now, those aren't great first-round draft picks, and I don't know that you're going to get value there. But if the Kings were in a spot where I think a lot of people were thinking about moving up, but if you're not going to give up, the number 9 for all of that stuff, I don't think it was good enough to trade the number 6 for it either.
Yeah, as much as you say, I just feel like there was so much potential on the board. Like I said, I like Willie Cauley-Stein. I like him. I feel like he's the safe pick. I feel like what he can bring defensively. I mean, he can guard 1 through 5 with his quick feet. I mean, there was just so much rumblings around the draft. I guess I'm just kind of bummed because there was so much trade talk, and there always is every year, the Kings making some type of move, and we kind of round up looking at just them drafting their pick. And so I'm going to lead to this. You were there. You interviewed Vlade Divac after the draft. Mm-hmm. Did it seem like, because the way I was listening, I mean, he was bringing up they're going to make a lot of moves during free agency. His confidence is there. So should we, as fans, put all of our trust now in Vlade Divac? Because it feels like everyone already has. So should we just put all of our trust into Vlade Divac, just thinking that he already knows exactly what he's doing? And, I mean, there's going to be a lot of moves during free agency?
Well, I got to be honest with you. Vlade has a way of winning the entire room over. He's an amazing, charismatic. You hear these stories about people who meet presidents, and, when Bill Clinton walks into a room, and I'm not a Bill Clinton fan, but I'll just make the point. When Bill Clinton walks into the room, every single person in the room is like, he has this magnetism to him that changes like everyone who's around him. And I think Vlade Divac has that way. I know that, I've said this before, but it was such a long week. It was a brutal week, and I wouldn't even want to know what it was like for Vlade Divac to have to deal with, George Karl trying to mutinize, and Vivek Ranadive, we now are learning possibly had even given Dan Fagan the go-ahead to work a deal with the Lakers. The national media turned on the Kings yet again. Adrian Wojnarowski putting out just crazy stuff that, the Kings had a framework in place, all of this stuff, right? Vlade Divac had a brutal week, and you got through the draft, and I think a lot of us were like, man, I would have taken Mudiay. I think that was a general consensus. But when he got done telling you that, like, look, if the guy doesn't want to work out here and he doesn't want to even talk to us in Chicago, then why would I even consider taking him? We're talking about millions of dollars that are on the line. We're talking about, your reputation that you're putting on the line. Why would I possibly draft a kid that has so little game footage, who wouldn't even have a basic conversation in Chicago with the team? It's like, forget that kid. I mean, he fell to 7 for a reason. And he's lucky he didn't fall further. And when you ask about, if they settled on Willie Cauley-Stein, I'd say this, like 3 weeks before the draft, when Willie Cauley-Stein came through Sacramento, the Kings didn't believe they were going to get Willie Cauley-Stein. They thought he was going to go number 3 or number 4. And that's where actually number 4 or number 5. They were pretty convinced that he would not be on the board when they got to draft. So Willie Cauley-Stein, you could say, oh, he may have fallen and all this stuff. But the fact is, all of that is draft crap. It's just rumor and innuendo. It doesn't mean anything in the long run. I mean, 2 weeks ago, Cameron Payne was going to go number 6. And, oh, my gosh, he's going to go interview with the Lakers and could go number 2. And where did Cameron Payne go? Like 13 or 14?
Yeah, he went
to that's where Cameron Payne should have gone. Yeah, I mean, that's where he should have gone in the draft. Last year, Noah Vonleh. Oh, my gosh, he could go number 2. He could go number 1 in this draft. He ends up going number 9 and probably should have gone number 15, number 16, where he started at the beginning of the draft process. You have to remember that there's a lot of like tomfoolery that goes on in the draft season. So when you're reading Draft Express and you see a guy way up there coming out of nowhere, they always end up back where they're supposed to be the day of the draft. And that's just, it's a weird thing that goes on during the draft. I'm going to tell you, it's not the cleanest thing. There is a lot of, never believe a mock draft board again, 100%, because really it's not experts. It's guys who, again, I have a lot of respect for Mike Schmitz at Draft Express and what he does with his video work. I think he's an expert. I think he doesn't do the poll. He doesn't do the who's going where, the mock draft. And, these things aren't true. They aren't true to form. You have no idea where a player is going to go. And I wrote about this today for my Sunday Musings. Jeff Petrie tried, nonstop to find the perfect fit to go next to DeMarcus Cousins. Pete D'Alessandro spent 2 years trying to find somebody to fit next to DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, he brought in he brought in Derek Williams. He brought in Carl Landry. I mean, he kept bringing in new pieces, trying to find the right fit to go with DeMarcus Cousins. Vlade Divac's got 3 months of NBA executive experience, and he just found a guy you could put next to DeMarcus Cousins for the next decade. So I'm not sure that you chose the wrong player.
I'm not. I hope it's not coming off as I'm saying that the Kings chose the wrong player. I mean, like I said, I like Willie Cauley-Stein. I like what he can do. My video editor, he put up like a great video of just highlights of what he's done in Kentucky through, I think it was like this 3 years there. And then I don't know what it is. I like him. I just feel like there was a lot of potential on the table for the Kings that maybe I'm just underwhelmed. And I'm in the minority on this, so I completely understand how crazy that kind of sounds. But I want to move on. I want to get into.
Okay.
I want to get on to DeMarcus Cousins because you kind of brought him up, and all of these trade rumors and all this stuff, like you said, Wojnarowski's coming out because this is a crazy week. How do you think the front office is taking this past week? Are they moving now in stride? And then I also want to move over to how do you think DeMarcus Cousins handled this past week? And final note on it is, how do you think it'll play out between Cousins and George Karl?
I think this is the strangest situation that we've ever seen.
Oh,
and
yes.
At the end of the day, I'm just going to tell you that I strongly believe that what you hear about DeMarcus Cousins wanting out of Sacramento and sort of the reality of it are two totally different things. I think DeMarcus Cousins has always proven, if there's one thing I know about DeMarcus Cousins, is that he's loyal to a fault. And I think that in a perfect situation, he would like to be in Sacramento and stay here. And I think his agents want to get him somewhere else. And I think that that's foolish. I think that that is really, really, really foolish. I've covered DeMarcus Cousins since the first day he came in the league. I started the same year covering the team a little over 5 years ago. And I got to be honest with you, he's gotten better. He's gotten better with the media. But he's not great with the media. If he pulled that God's plan thing in LA, I don't even know what would have happened. I mean, could you imagine God's plan being all over the front page of the LA Times? And it would just go from there. And I mean, he will get eaten alive. And again, his agents want to put him somewhere. You want to put him in Hollywood, so what? So he can get movie deals? I'm gonna be honest with you, DeMarcus Cousins ain't getting any movie deals. He's not getting any commercial deals. I mean, he's not that guy. And if you're his representation and you still think that that's who you've got on your hands, that you've got some like lottery ticket, then you're stone cold crazy. That is the end of it. I mean, he has gotten better, but it doesn't mean that he is acceptable. It doesn't. I mean, that unfortunately, it's not. There are plenty of things that he can still work on. And he's growing and he's getting better and all of these things. So, look, I think his representation is leading him astray, number one. I think that His representation filled him with a lot of negatives about George Karl before he came in the door, and George Karl, lo and behold, proved most of those correct in the first month and a half that he was there in Sacramento. I think really George Karl played this thing foolishly from day one. I do believe that the people who think that George Karl wants him out, they were right. I believe that George Karl would prefer to go to battle without DeMarcus Cousins, but I'm going to say this for like both of their sakes. They're both better off with each other. I mean, if DeMarcus Cousins thinks he can go win with Byron Scott and like an 85-year-old Kobe Bryant over George Karl and Rudy Gay, I don't get it. That's foolish. And, you know, if George Karl wants to win a championship, I hate to tell you this, George, there hasn't been a team to win a championship outside of the Detroit Pistons in the early 2000s. There hasn't been a team to win a championship in, I don't know, 4 decades, 5 decades that don't have a Hall of Fame caliber player. And the Kings, you take away DeMarcus Cousins, you trade him in any of the deals that have been mentioned, and any of the deals that haven't been mentioned, you're not getting Iguodala for him. You're not getting an all-star back. You're not getting a future Hall of Fame type player back. And so you tell me how you're going to improve here, and you tell me how George Karl's lot in life is going to improve by not having DeMarcus Cousins. They both need to just shut up and play. And that's a harsh reality, but, I mean, at some point, it just has to be said. I mean, you just have to, like, get together and work it out, or don't work it out and just play. One of you coach, one of you play, and just see where it goes. Now, what do I think is going to happen? I don't know. I think the Kings are foolish to trade him, and I think Vlade Divac doesn't want to be the guy who traded DeMarcus Cousins, and I think they're going to hold on to him for a while. But if he really, really forces their hand, then, you know, I still, to be honest with you, the Kings got nothing better to lose. I would let him sit and rot. If he doesn't want to play here and he totally freaks out and he kills his trade value, that's fine. I'll just suspend you indefinitely. And that's what I would do.
So if you had to make a choice, George Karl or DeMarcus Cousins, if you had to make the choice, who do you go with?
A 24-year-old all-star center versus a 62 going on 63-year-old guy who's run himself out of almost every city he's ever been in. I don't like saying it because in the past I would have said something different, but it's going to be DeMarcus Cousins.
I did this same exact logic. Someone asked me earlier today when I was at the gym playing basketball. They were like, well, what do you think the Kings would do? And I said that same exact thing. Would you want a 24-year-old who has that Hall of Fame talent, or do you want a Hall of Fame coach, but you only get him for like 2 years? I mean, that's kind of what you're working with. So I agree with you. I think no matter what, I think it's all up to Cousins. But is there a chance, and I just want to know yes or no real quick, is there a good chance that one of these guys aren't on the team come next season?
Next season?
This upcoming season, yes.
Hey, there's always a chance. There's always a chance. I mean, I think George Karl would have to resign because I don't know that the Kings can afford to pay him out again after, you know, they have to pay Michael Malone's salary this year too. But I think there's a chance. I just, you know, you can't get this far down the road. And if someone doesn't want to come to the table and work this out, then somebody's got to go. I mean, Vlade's been very clear. Either I won't be here, or George won't be here, or DeMarcus won't be here, or we'll all three work it out. So all of those are possibilities.
All right, guys, this is James Ham joining us on the Kings Court, the late night edition. Everyone go check out BrickHouseIndustries.com. Go to BrickHouseIndustries.com, use the promo code KingsCourt, and get a discount on us. Well, James, after one big event to the next, we are now only just a few days away. I think it's like 4 days away till free agency. Oh, what do you think the Kings are going to do? Because there's still the rumors and the rumblings, and of course Ty Lawson smoking on some hookah that he's coming to Sacramento. There's rumors that they're interested in Lou Williams, Wesley Matthews, and possibly Rodney Stuckey. Do you see the Kings being very active during this free agency period?
I think they're going to be extremely active, but I don't know that that means anything. I mean, the Kings have tried to be extremely active for the last, 3 years, and nothing's worked. If you're a free agent and you just watch what happened the 3 days leading up to the draft, would you want to sign in Sacramento? I mean, I wouldn't. So Wes Matthews is going to ask for way too much money. I don't know how he's going to get that much money coming off an Achilles injury. I think guys like Aaron Aflalo are a better option. I think Aaron Aflalo, again, you didn't bring him up, but Rajon Rondo is going to be on the radar. The Kings do want another point guard. I think that Kostas Koufos is going to be on the radar. I think that Jason Thompson is fully on the block. I think the Kings could buy out Carl Landry and send him packing and break his money up over 5 years and open up some more space. I do not think Derek Williams will be back. I think Omri Caspi will be back. I mean, and then on top of that, what do you do? I mean, there are so many options here. And then again, the Kings may not have any options. No one may want to come here and sign here. And you may have to overpay for a guy like Rodney Stuckey. I mean, that's not what you want to do, but if you run out of options and you need to improve this team, a lot like what they did last year where they, right as training camp starting there, they signed Ryan Hollins, Omri Caspi, and Ramon Sessions all like boom, boom, boom. I don't think it will be that desperate this year because I think those players were desperate for a spot and the Kings were desperate for players. I think the Kings will have a few more options because they're going to chase people early and see what they can come up with, and they're going to keep trying to push to move Jason Thompson to a different location so they can sort of balance his roster out.
You brought up Rondo. I want to get to him in a little bit just because you brought him up. But I kind of want to touch on this Ty Lawson thing a little bit more because I want to get your take on it. I'm guessing you saw the video of him smoking the hookah, saying, "Oh, I'm coming to Sacramento. Oh, I'm," like just talking. Is that someone the Kings really want on this team? I mean, after seeing something like that, is that really someone that they really want to go after?
To be honest with you, there's worse stuff than that I've heard about Ty Lawson. I mean, the video was like, "Hey, look how dumb he is." Boy, that takes you to a new level of ridiculous, just stupidity. It's one thing to take a video like that. It's one thing to shoot a sex video. It's a whole other thing to put it on the internet. It's just like at some point you have to have some common sense. And I don't know if one of his hookah smoking buddies is the one who like videoed and then put it out there. To me, it kind of looked like, to even take it a step further, he was using like a selfie cam, like a selfie stick. Like, oh man, the dude's using the selfie stick to do this. I mean, just the level of just incompetence and foolishness that this guy, and he's too old to be doing that. He's like a 26, 27-year-old man. That's just dumb. There's been a quiet, behind the radar, talk for a while that he has other issues. Now we get to see the hookah in full force. Again, we don't know if the hookah was tobacco or if it was something else. Unfortunately, he didn't click the sniff and YouTube button when he was recording it, so we could actually smell what was going on there. But again, George Karl loves the kid. Saying all of this stuff. I mean, he hated his coach, Brian Shaw. He got him run out the building. He didn't show up after the All-Star break. He didn't come back when everyone else did. He just showed up a couple of days later and, didn't call or anything. He had a DUI, if I'm not mistaken.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, he's got some substance abuse issues. And by substance abuse, I'm going to say, clearly you have a DUI, there's probably a drinking problem. But you wrap it all up into a nice bow, and he still played 72 games, if I'm not mistaken. He still averaged, close to 10 assists a game, over 15 points. I mean, he's very talented. He just needs a new place. And I'm going to say that the place he doesn't need to be is in Denver, where they have... It was in Denver where they don't have Yeah, well, I mean, where pot and everything else is legalized. So I don't know. If I'm the Kings and I can get Ty Lawson for a bag of peanuts for the next 2 years, I probably do it. If they're going to match salary and take on, say, Jason Thompson and Nick Stauskas, and I can put Ty Lawson in my backcourt, even if he's proven to be a pretty dumb dude, he still can play basketball.
Okay, so you brought up one of the players. But so you were out one head case. Let's move on to the other. Rajon Rondo. Is that really someone the Kings should try and go after? I mean, he kind of completely ruined his value out in Dallas. And by the way, I really hope Twitter does make a scratch and sniff button or something. That's still stuck in my head. But do you really think the Kings should go after Rajon Rondo after what happened in Dallas?
Oh, boy.
I know.
Yes.
Wow.
You know, here's how it goes. I hate saying this. When you're the Sacramento Kings, you don't get to choose between LeBron James, Kevin Love, LaMarcus Aldridge, and a bevy of really, Marc Gasol. You don't get to choose between the good players. The good players with clean records who haven't done anything wrong. You have to buy a fixer-upper and hope that you can fix it up, and then it doesn't like catch fire in your driveway and burn your house down. That's kind of what you have to hope for. And that's because of this situation that they're in over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I think that in a perfect world, players would have loved to have come to Sacramento to play for George Karl with DeMarcus Cousins and Rudy Gay and Darren Collison and Willie Cauley-Stein and Ben McLemore. But that's not – it's where we are, but it's not really where we are, right? So you're going to have to talk some people into this. And, I know George Karl brought Afflalo up from nothing and made him who he was as a player. I know that he did the same for Kostas Koufos after getting him in the Carmelo Anthony trade. If I'm not mistaken, Afflalo played like 2 years in Detroit before he came to Denver and really had done very little there and got paid because of his time with George Karl. I mean, these are players that you hope would say, hey, I wouldn't mind going there. And then there's a list of players that other teams are going to want to get rid of. You know, you saw Lance Stevenson go. Again, if the Kings could have got in on the Lance Stevenson thing, they should have, just because they need talent. And he's talented.
Nothing.
He went for absolutely nothing.
Oh,
yeah.
My goodness, he went for nothing.
And, you know, like, the Clippers are trying to give away Jamal Crawford right now because once his contract, they have until June, the last day of June to pick up next year an option for this year, or they can buy him out for like $1 million. And they would prefer not to keep him, but they can trade him to somebody for like a big man that they could use. And then that other team would have the option to either keep him, use him as an expiring contract after the season, or waive him and save $4 million up front. So I could see a team like the Kings saying, look, I'll trade you Jason Thompson straight up for Jamal Crawford and, you know, saving a bunch of money. And you guys get a big man since you just gave away that, you know, extra from Justified, Spencer Haas. You know, he's like a son of anarchy. I make references to him all the time on Twitter, which aren't very nice. He's the only player I do that to. You know, he's sort of like, the Rob Lowe. He's like the slimy, I don't know.
He's
just
two
like
versions of Rob Lowe. That commercial
yeah.
that you're talking about.
Yeah. He's like scuzzy Rob Lowe. I'm scuzzy Rob Lowe. And you're like, oh, man, look at... I mean, Spencer Hawes isn't like a fun person to be around for most people because he's very, very opinionated and very, very, very so far on the right. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're in an NBA locker room and you got to travel with these guys all the time and he just won't stop talking and, expressing his views on everything all the time, it drives people bonkers. And he's one of those guys. And so, again, I think that there's a place for Jason Thompson to go in a deal like that for someone like Jamal Crawford, where you're getting a 35-year-old guy and then you got to make a decision. Does he make my team better for 1 year, or does he make my team better by saving me $4.5 million and I can move forward and go chase more people in free agency that don't really want to come to Sacramento? And so it's, the Kings have got themselves in a situation. And this is, partially their own making, partially a media making, but it is partially their own making, and they need to figure it out.
So other than point guard, I mean, we're talking Rondo, we're talking Ty Lawson. What other players do you think the Kings should be targeting come July 1st?
For my money, this last year you had 20 to 25 games where you got zero production out of your shooting guard position. The year before, it was about 45 games that you got zero production, where you were playing almost every single game, 4-on-5. And again, I really like Ben McLemore. He's a good young kid, and he's getting better, and his improvement from year 1 to year 2 is remarkable. Hopefully his next step from year 2 to year 3 will be similar. But at the same time, he had a run of, 15 games, out of 20, where he allowed the opposing shooting guard to go off for 20+ points. He just got torched defensively, and not only that, but he was giving you nothing on the offensive end. And then you got Stouses coming off the bench and giving you, negative, not even nothing. He's giving you negative minutes. And I can't imagine the Kings walking into another season where they have no real solid veteran influence, veteran presence at the shooting guard position. And, if they would have kept Jason Terry last year, they would have been a better team. No doubt about it. If they would have kept, who's a kid that they traded they bought out, they stretch provisioned. He went down, he played for the Lakers, and then his dad was killed during the season in Philadelphia.
I have no clue who you're talking about right now.
They made a deal for a player that was they traded for him, if I'm not mistaken, from the Knicks. Wayne Ellington. There it is.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Wayne Ellington.
I actually liked him. If the Kings would have kept him, I actually liked him.
Yeah, if they would have kept him, they would have been a better team. If you could have had a guy who can guarantee you 8 to 10 points off the bench as a 3-point threat, and then for those long stretches where Ben McLemore goes on hiatus, leading up to the All-Star break, you could have inserted him into the starting lineup and said, just bomb away. And the Kings they gave away all of that depth. And the year before, they did the same thing. We asked Pete Alessandro at the end of the season. He talked about how the team just had no 3-point shooting at all. And I said, okay, but if you had no 3-point shooting, why did you trade John Salmons, Gravis Vasquez, Marcus Thornton, and then you waived Jimmer Fredette all in one season? And he said, oh, well, I need guys that are actually, and Patrick Patterson. So 5 of your 6 best 3-point shooters, the only 3-point shooter they left was Isaiah Thomas, who they jettisoned during the season. And so these are things that, the Kings did to themselves. So I don't know. I would have liked to have seen them walk into the season with a better veteran presence there at the shooting guard position. And again, they have the same issue this year. I think they need another wing, a 3-and-D guy. I like what Omri Caspi brings, but I also know that they plan on playing Rudy Gay quite a bit at the 4, because what they're going to do is they're going to have Gay and Cousins and Willie Cauley-Stein likely start, but then slide Cauley-Stein to the 5 and have Gay play alongside Cauley-Stein as well when they go small. And so I could see them also chasing a big like Kufos, who I know that they've been linked to in the past, and they would like, just because he is a rim runner. He's a guy who protects the rim as well. Solid defensive player who has a bit of offensive skill and some toughness. So that would be my, if I was going to round out this roster, If I'm going to keep Jason Thompson to be my fourth big or my third big, then that's fine. If I re-sign Omri Caspi, I still want one more guy. Maybe a guy who can play the 2 and the 3. Maybe a guy like Danny Green comes to mind who really fits a need. And then, of course, you need another point guard. You do, because I like Lawson, but, he did miss, 35 games last year. And, Ray McCallum is a nice story, but he still hasn't proven that he's an actual NBA regular.
All right, guys, it's that time. We are going to move into fan questions. Now, we're doing something brand new. We've never done it before. So if you guys are listening, I did post the number up there in the chat. If you guys have a question that you want to get on the show and you want to ask James personally, you can call that number right now. If we don't get any calls, James, I still took a lot of questions off of Twitter, the Kings app, the Sacramento Kings off Facebook, everything like that. So I do have questions there. But if you do have a question that you want to get on the show about free agency, the draft, anything like that, feel free to call in at any time during this point. I want to remind everyone that the Kings Court is sponsored by BrickHouseIndustries.com and The Quality Shop. Be sure to go to The Quality Shop located in downtown Roseville for quality clothes at a quality price. So our very first question of the day, as I'm pulling it up right now, comes from Alex Lindley. He wants to know, now that we've drafted the future Rookie of the Year, what does this mean for the rest of the power forwards on our team? How does JT and Landry respond?
Landry doesn't fit any long-term plan, and he's out 5 to 6 months after having wrist surgery. For my money, I would cut bait and run with Landry, especially with the NBA salary cap exploding over the next 5 years. What you can do is stretch provision him and basically take his 2-year, $13 million contract and break it out over 5 years, which is $2.6 million a year. This year, he basically counts about 10%, 9-point-something% of the salary cap. But if you had him at $2.6 million, that number drops considerably. And then next year, when the salary cap goes, to $80+ million.
All right, James, so we actually have a phone call here. They want to get on in right now. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, that's fine. No, go.
Welcome to the Kings Court. Who do we got?
Hey, it's Preston, man.
How's it going, Preston? What do you want to ask James?
Hey, what's up, James?
How's it going, man?
Yeah, so hey, man, I'm really intrigued with this Rondo thing. I don't know if you saw on Adrian Wojnarowski's Twitter profile, but he had a report that had Rondo and the Kings are mutually interested, and I kind of thought about it, and it's Rondo and Rudy Gay are really close friends, and I know he's really good friends with DeMarcus Cousins, and I kind of thought, well, he's trying to rebuild his image on a 1-year deal or whatever. So I don't know. What do you think about all that? And
I would
the other thing too is, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say too, if I don't think he's gonna be a head case, because if he's trying to rebuild his image, I don't think you'll have to deal with him.
Okay, so Rondo is a very, very different individual. And even in the NBA world, where there are a bunch of really, really different cats out there. I mean, you walk into a locker room and there are some strange dudes. I mean, I once sat and waited for Gerald Wallace to interview Gerald Wallace in a locker room while he dumped literally a half a bottle of lotion on his skin and sat there and rubbed lotion into his skin for 15 minutes while we sat there and waited. And it was so much lotion that when he got done rubbing it all in, he still had to towel off layers of lotion off his body. So what I'm saying is that there are strange dudes in the league, but I'm going to take Rondo and I'm going to put him in a whole different category. He's an outlier. He's a lone wolf, and a very, very different cat. And if he can fit in with Rudy Gay and DeMarcus Cousins, then I think it works. And if he's willing, I wouldn't take him on a 1-year deal that was just one and done. I would take him on a 1-year deal with a second-year team option, and that forces him to earn his money. And so you have to checks and balances with him. He's still young enough. I do have concerns about his knees. He never truly recovered from his ACL tear. And I think that if you're going to take a gamble, say you can get Rondo for $8 million a year, and that still leaves you enough money to go out and get someone else to help out, then I think I would do it. If it's like Rondo wants $12 million a year, he wants one and done, and he's out, then I would worry that he's going to come in, he's going to steal your money, and he's going to leave. And he may even push his way out halfway through the year.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because earlier I was listening to the Sports Talk 916 podcast. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they were just talking about how vulnerable he is. Like he hasn't played that many. He hasn't played like more than 50 games in like 5 years. And I don't know, man. So like what would you say like the likelihood he actually ends up on the Kings?
Thanks for your question, Preston. So what do you think the likelihood is?
I would think that the likelihood is pretty decent, honestly. I would say that, I would say if he's not being chased by a bunch of teams, then Sacramento's going to look very, very appealing to him. And I'll also point out the one thing I don't like about Rondo is he can't shoot it all from the perimeter. And again, the Kings need shooters. They need playmakers and they need shooters. Well, really what they need is playmaking shooters, and that's kind of a rare breed. And I just, again, I like him next to Collison. I like those two together because I think Collison does a really nice job of hitting the short porch three. And he played a lot of two-guard alongside Chris Paul with the Clippers. But if you're bringing in Rondo, you're looking at two fragile point guards in Collison and Rondo, and so that means you have to keep Ray McCallum, and maybe that works. Maybe you don't need to go chase a shooting guard because now you've got, the ability to slide Collison over and steal 15 minutes a game at the two.
Who would you rather have, James, Rajon Rondo or Ty Lawson?
Man, that's so tough.
I'm going Ty Lawson.
I think they're both such sizable risks. I'll say this: the one thing about Lawson is that he's younger. He's under contract for one more year, although that could be a detriment. And he played, a lot of games last year. He played games and he was productive. Where Rondo played a few games and was totally unproductive and not good for large stints, and really, really hurt the Dallas Mavericks.
And it was embarrassing during the playoffs. It was so embarrassing watching him during the playoffs. All right, so our next question comes from Axel. He asks, how is there any way whatsoever that Cousins and Karl can coexist at this point? Let's say they can't. Let's say they can't. Should we target Mark Jackson? Didn't Boogie like him during the interview process?
No, that's crazy talk. Yeah, I mean, look, again, this is one of those things where, again, there are strange cats out there. There are, the NBA is filled with interesting characters. And to me, Mark Jackson isn't interesting at all. He's a self-righteous, over-the-top, I don't even know. There are a lot of different words to describe him. Condescending. There's a reason why he was run out of Golden State. I mean, look, Steve Kerr just won a championship, and that wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's Mark Jackson's team, because everyone the year before believed it was Michael Malone's team. And then, of course, Jackson did okay the following year, but I mean, Steve Kerr took that team to new heights. Mark Jackson is just, I don't know, he's preachy, and he's not X's and O's, and I think preachy gets old really quick. The Kings have a guy right now who basically, has no problem telling you that he's, won X amount of games, and he's won 50 games in the season this many times, and he's made the playoffs this many times. He's a great coach. He's taken teams with very little talent and did amazing things. Mark Jackson took a team, sputtered in the playoffs, didn't make it to the finals. He gets fired. They win an NBA championship with a rookie coach who'd never coached before. I don't know. Mark Jackson would be really, really low on my list. Now, the guy who is high on my list is Tom Thibodeau, who DeMarcus Cousins really does enjoy. He's a very straightforward guy. That's who Cousins likes. He likes your straightforward, coming at you, telling you exactly what you think, exactly where your role is, and what he thinks of you, all those things. I like Thibodeau a lot more than I like Mark Jackson. Thibodeau's not creative, but at the same time, he really is a good coach, and I think he'll be back in the league soon. And him and DeMarcus do have a relationship from their time with Team USA.
Let's make it clear, though, you're not saying the Kings are talking or should even be close to talking to Tom Thibodeau, right? Because people might misinterpret what you just said, just because they'll get really excited that you said the Kings and Tom Thibodeau and DeMarcus Cousins likes him.
No. I mean, I don't think the Kings are talking to anybody.
Okay.
I think they're trying to talk to George Karl and trying to get George Karl and DeMarcus Cousins to talk to each other, and we'll see how that goes.
All right, James, we got 2 questions left. We're running down. We have like 13 minutes left here, so let's try to run through these a little quick here. Will the Kings regret not drafting Cameron Payne? That's come from JGut378.
No, Cameron Payne was not a number 6 player. He was not worthy of the 6th pick in the draft, and that's nothing against Cameron Payne. Very nice kid, very charismatic. He was another guy who could win a room. I really liked him. Same time, the Kings tried everything to get back into the draft at around 13, and couldn't do it. They couldn't get back into the draft, and if they would have, it was specifically to draft Cameron Payne. They really liked him, but you don't regret taking a guy who's 7 foot tall, who just added 5 inches to his vert. I don't know if people saw that, but
his
vert is 41 inches, people. He can touch the top of the backboard. His chin can be above the rim. I mean, we're talking Dennis Rodman leaps. Now, he's not the rebounder, but he can guard 5 positions. He's the fastest big man the Kings have ever seen. One of the fastest big men to ever test at the Combines. He can guard any position. The guy that I loved, Vlade Divac compared him to, was Doug Christie. Just like he's a glue guy. He can go give you whatever you need. He can guard anyone that you want. He can spring open for a dunk. He's lively. He's all over. He's intense. Those are things that you really look at, and I think that the Kings made the right pick there. Again, Cameron Payne, good kid, just not a top 10 player, and you're not going to change my mind on that. I mean, just really, really skinny. He's going to take a little while to get there. We're talking about a small school guy. I would not have gone that direction.
Final question here comes from, I'm going to completely butcher your name, and I'm completely sorry about it. Mahu Nazini. His name is, his question, not his name. His question is, do you think they will trade DMC, and what seems like a realistic trade scenario?
See, this is a tough thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think they'll trade him?
No.
I think they're going to try everything in the book not to trade him. I think they're going to do everything in their power not to trade him. But if they have to trade him, and like what we're looking at, the Lakers are offering up whatever crap they were offering up.
They have no assets. I'm sorry. That was just completely ridiculous. Jordan Clarkson and Julius Randle coming off an injury. Stop it. Just stop it.
And the number 2 pick, I really like. I mean, again, D'Angelo Russell is my guy, I think, at the top of the draft. He has the potential to be a star. And so that's what you have to get. You have to have a guy who's potentially a star. I think to put it in perspective for people, Ty Lawson, Kenneth Faried, and the number 7 weren't equal value. That's not enough. So you got to go well above that. And if you look around the league and you try to work out a handful of deals, you're going to come up short. You're going to come up short every single time. I've heard people say, well, how about Drew Holiday and Ryan Anderson? Tell me where you got a star there, where you got an all-star, even a fringe all-star, where you got someone that you can, just keep going down the list. There's just very, very few teams that have the value. Again, Boston, They have, 6 picks next year? I think they could have up to 6 first-round picks. 6 first-round picks, if they're not in the top 5, and that doesn't even make sense, then, you're going to have a tough time trading them. Because we're talking about an NBA superstar. And who's 24 years old and under contract for 3 years at like a $25 million discount on what he could make if he was a free agent on the open market. And so 2 years from now, when he's got a year left on his deal, if he still doesn't want to be here, then we start talking. But for right now, I don't move him.
All right, James, that is our show. I want to thank you coming on this late at night. This is the very first time we've talked this late at night. Never done a late night show before. I want to thank Preston for calling in, be the very first caller ever to come in on the show. Now, I did say, because the show did get pushed back a little bit, guys, that I would do a giveaway. So tweet me on Twitter. What should I do? I don't even know. You know what? Tweet me the Kings' last 3 picks from 2007 to 2010, and you guys will win a Sac Kings Nation t-shirt. That's that easy. All right, James, where can people find you online?
You can find me at CowbellKingdom, where I've been forever. The ESPN True Hoop Network. I sometimes write for ESPN, Fox Sports 1. You can find me at James_Ham on Twitter. I think that's about it. Don't try to add me on Facebook. Sorry, folks. I just don't do Facebook, and what I do on Facebook is for family and friends. But outside of that, I am available. You can get me on Twitter.
Also, guys, follow the Cowbell Kingdom on YouTube. I mean, I just saw your guys' introductory video. Way more clear. No offense, Kings.com, but your guys' video is so much better than anybody else's that I've seen. So yours comes up the most clear of the introductory video of them. So go follow them on there for the road reaction post-game show with him and our last guest, Rui Thomas. And, of course, guys, you guys can follow me on Twitter as well, at VM Center. I now write for a royalpain.com, so you can see me on there. Of course, SacKingsNation.com, where we will be starting to sell out these T-shirts to upgrade our equipment and, of course, update the show and everything that's going on. And you can definitely go help us out on Patreon.com as well. Follow me on Twitter, at VM Center. The video editor, Molly Silverbrand, at msilverbrand. Subscribe here on YouTube. Subscribe on Stitcher, iTunes, anything like that. And until next time, Sacramento Kings fans, bye-bye.